We all have 13 pints of blood, 206 bones. We all bleed. We all decay when we die. So what makes anybody's life more valuable than, say, mine? Character, they say. How you live while you're alive. Your words and your deeds. Well, let us use that rubric to value the life of a certain dead queen. Oh dear, what have we here? If character is the measure, then the life of the queen is worth less than a chicken's feather. I have her deeds in Africa right here, and all I see is blood and death and tears and theft everywhere. Is this the person we were instructed to pray to God to save? And now that she has met her demise, we are asked to mourn for 12 days? Ask me in 2024 and see if my mind would have changed. I need all of 12 years to mourn at my ancestors' grave. Let them mourn their queen. To them she was good. She was their reversed Robin Hood, stealing from the poor to feed the rich. Their queen was a. The black woman is my queen. Africa is my mother. My tears are for my sisters and my brothers. I tear for my ancestors. That was untitled so far. I wrote it at the request of one of my subscribers who know about my songwriting and poetry side. He knows himself. I mean, he was so peeved by the 12 days of mourning declaration in Jamaica that he insisted that I wrote something about it. And it's a perfect segue into what I really want to talk about in this video. So, welcome back to the channel. As you know, this platform is like a resource center for people of African ancestry where you can find the arguments and the data, the answers and the examples to justify the urgency and the necessity for black unity, where you can find the arguments to counteract and contextualize the negative narratives against blackness and against our mother, Africa. You see, there are those who try to silence us in the African diaspora, especially when we try to talk about our experience with the current world system and those who design it and control it. When we try to say that we have been living under siege for the past 400 years, and that experience has impeded us in the past and is still affecting us today, some of the very same persons who want us to contribute our tears to mourn the demise of our oppressor, they accuse us of having a quote-unquote victim mentality. They say that we just love to whine and complain and never accept responsibility for our problems. Well, I disagree. I decided to do this video because of a conversation I was having with a co-worker regarding reparation and why England, France, Belgium, Spain, Italy and all these countries should compensate us for slavery and colonization and pay redress for the general terror that they have put us through. Now this person that I was talking to, a co-worker, he believes that we should just move on. He said that we should come out of this, and he used the word victim mentality. Then I said, wait, I have heard this somewhere before, and this is one of the topics on which sometimes we have a difficulty coming to a common consensus. It is a point on which we are divided, and I want us to be united, so that's why it is of importance to me. On the one side, some people are saying that we should keep the memories of our persecution and oppression alive, so that those who have enslaved and persecuted us will remember that we haven't forgotten and that we are entitled to be compensated. And then there's the other side that thinks that we should just, stop talking about the past and just move on, because quote-unquote dwelling on the past is a sign of victim mentality. And the way it is said, the way the word is used, it makes you know that victim mentality is a bad thing. It carries a negative connotation. You see, sometimes when people get uncomfortable with us expressing our truth, they use terms like these to shame us into silence. So in this video, I'm just going to have a discussion on this victim shaming narrative. So what is victim mentality? Now, I'm not going to go into the psychology of it. I'm not pretending to be any psychological expert, but I did some reading online, and I'm just going to give you the summary of what the whole thing is all about. When someone is said to have a victim mentality, it comes with 4 characteristics. So 1, that person will believe that other person are responsible for their bad situation and condition. 2, they believe that the world is against them. 3, they have a belief that things will never change. And the 4th one is that they refuse to take action or responsibility for fixing their situation, even when there are clear options, there are clear solutions. So what I've just read a while ago is what they say black people are displaying as a collective when we try to articulate the role of the past and present systems of oppression in our current condition. Well, as I have said before, I disagree. Objection, Your Honor. First of all, victim mentality describes a belief. So, it is something that exists only in one's head, but not in real life. Now, when it comes to black people, we don't believe that other people are responsible for our bad situation. It is a fact of history. The black man don't believe that the world is against his race. The evidence to support that conclusion is everywhere. And to deny that is like denying the sun in the sky. However, those who are responsible for and benefit from these systems that keep us down, as well as some black persons who want to appease them, will pretend to be blind. The second thing I want to say is that we don't think that things will never change. We are not a pessimistic people. On the contrary, it is our undying conviction of a better destiny. It is our optimism that has kept us alive all these years, to the point that we have been able to even excel under the fury of a global system of anti-black oppression and scorn. On the other point about someone with a victim mentality not accessing the many opportunities, there's no multiplicity of opportunity for the black man, and he refused to take advantage of them. If anything, there is a multiplicity of opportunities from which he has been violently barred. Now, based on what I just said, can someone explain to me how victim mentality can be an appropriate generalization for black people when it comes to dealing with our past traumas? When the Jews talk about the Holocaust, the 6 million that died under Hitler's regime in concentration camps between, I think, 1933 and 1945, no one said that they have a victim mentality. They are allowed to memorialize their painful past. Not to take anything from the Jews, but what we have been through is arguably 100 times worse than the Holocaust. The Holocaust was in Germany, carried out by Hitler and the Nazis for over, say, a 12-year period. Black people were under the terror of Germany, England, Scotland, Portugal, Spain, France, Belgium, Italy, and the United States for some 400 plus years. Yet the Jews are allowed to talk about their experience, but black people should be silent. That label is nothing but shaming language. You see, those who have afflicted us and those who have benefited from that affliction are choking with guilt. Every time that we connect the dots between the privation of the black race and the prosperity of theirs, they cringe. So they try to deflect their shame and guilt onto us. All of a sudden, our victimization is not real. It is just a figment of our imagination, which we have concocted to avoid taking advantage of the quote-unquote many options that are available for us to prosper. I reject that narrative wholeheartedly. Now, let me set the record straight. I'm not going to act like black people are in no way, shape, or form responsible for their ills. But let's not pretend like the past has nothing to do with our present position in the world. I am from Jamaica, and when slavery was abolished in the Caribbean, even though England extracted My foreparents labored for some 200 years without paying them a dollar. The slave owners received £20 million in compensation from the British government for loss of property, which they then invested in the British economy. Black people received nothing, released without a dime, not an inch of land, no education, no status, nothing. So from the very first day as free people, we were strategically placed below the poverty line. Things were so bad that some of my ancestors had to seek employment with their former enslavers. Imagine that. So to those who love to accuse us of having a victim mentality, this is the question I want to ask. Are you saying that the disparity between the Jamaican and British economies, between the life chances of Jamaican blacks and British whites today, has nothing to do with what they did to us and what they took from us? Are you saying that both countries had a level playing field, and that these abhorrent acts, which quote unquote never should have happened, according to Prince Williams and his father before him, had no impact on either countries? Are you saying that these quote unquote abhorrent acts didn't handicap Jamaica in any way? Nor did they help Britain in any way? Are we just untruthfully blaming quote unquote other people for our misfortune because we love to play the victim card? And bear in mind, this is just Jamaica. I can multiply this by all the Caribbean countries, all the Latin American countries, and all the African countries. Are you really trying to tell me that the whites in South Africa, being less than 10% of the population, owning 70% of the country's wealth and occupying 70% of the important positions in the country, has nothing to do with apartheid? That white people are just smart and black people are just dumb, and has not advanced further because they love to quote unquote play victim? Come on. You see, I get it why some black people want to forget the past, claim the now, and move on. It's too painful. Like I said in one of my previous videos, there are those who believe that to acknowledge the effects of the past is the same as making excuses for the failure of today's corrupt, incompetent, and puppet black politicians. So, in a way, when we deny the impact of the past, we take away their excuse and force them to act. I get it. So maybe I should say it here that any black person that loves to wallow in self-pity and has no further objective than to complain and relax in your problems because our ancestors were victimized, don't get this thing twisted. Nothing I say here is meant to justify your inaction. This is not for the black person who would want to blame their gingivitis and their traffic tickets on slavery and colonization. This platform is for those who know that black people have been impeded by unimaginable cruelty over the centuries and are willing to come together and do something about it. Do something to build ourselves up. Do something to lift ourselves from the bottom of the totem pole. Those are the persons that I'm talking to. In a way, this victim mentality label is another layer of black victimization when you really look at it. Denying the impact of the past and our present condition is not only disingenuous, it is also very deflating for those who are still grieving their ancestors, those who have not yet overcome the trauma. There's nothing more dehumanizing and insensitive to a victim than to deny the crime, to say that he is pretending to be affected, pretending to be hurt, pretending to have suffered. All of a sudden, this victim starts to question himself. He starts to feel less of a person. And while all of this is happening, in the background, the perpetrator is being vindicated. The perpetrator starts to convince himself that he did nothing and slowly reshape the narrative in which he, the perpetrator, becomes the true victim. So in his mind, he's no longer the perpetrator, but he's now the victim of a false accusation. Denying or romanticizing the past does nothing for us and everything for those who have violated us. You see, when the crimes of a serial culprit is called into reckoning, there is no sweeter sound to that perpetrator than the voices of the very victim saying that the RAPE, for example, was not so bad. And like a magic trick, the roles just get flipped and the real life villains become the victims in the new script. I'm going to give you a real life story. I remember being in court once, and a business owner was brought before the judge for pouring hot water on a homeless man that would sleep overnight on the pavement in front of his business place. The judge recounted the incident to the businessman and was about to start the trial proceedings when the victim, the homeless man, interjected. So the judge allowed him to speak. This was about the third time that the matter was being called up in court. So by this time, his wounds would have started to heal and so on. I suspect that the businessman may have bribed him or something, but that is just my speculation. Anyway, when the judge allowed him to speak, he started off by saying, "Your Honor, you know, I'm not feeling too bad." And the judge stopped him immediately and said, "I know where this is going. You want to give him a chance, don't you?" So the homeless man responded, "Yes, Your Honor." And the judge replied, "It's too late for that, sir. This case is no longer between you and him. It is between him and me." What is the point of this story? I know that some of us, as black people, are not, quote unquote, feeling too bad at the moment after what we have been through as a race. I know that some of us have good reasons why we would rather block these incidents out of our memory. For example, those who have afflicted us have certain resources that we need, so we don't want to offend them. Based on the history, some of us are afraid. And then there is the invisible nature of our present oppression, which caused some of us to get complacent. But guess what? There are many of us. Some of us are like that homeless man who sees justice in forgiveness. And there are others of us who, like that judge, see justice in redress. The offending party pays damages. What am I saying? That black people should be bitter and resentful? No. I am saying that we should value ourselves and the blood of our ancestors so much that when we are wronged, we will not rest until it is rectified. I'm not saying that black people should meet up somewhere and hold hands and cry together over past atrocities. But I am saying that we should not try to forget those atrocities either. As a matter of fact, we should do everything in our powers to remember them so they will never happen to us again. I know that not everyone can do this, and I understand that. Not everyone could be a coroner or a nurse or a police officer, for example. Any profession that has to make frequent contact with death and blood and pain and human cruelty. Even me that is talking, it depresses me to have to contend with so much tears and sweat and blood that resulted from the torture of black bodies. I hate to come into contact with these things, but there's no other way. I have to seek out these things to understand and catalog the gory details of the acts of calculated spite and misery that were brought upon my people. I know the deeds of our oppressors, and it doesn't make me hate them. I thought I would be bitter, but I'm not, and I don't understand it. Instead, knowing their deeds gives me clarity. It gives me and it gives us a slight idea of the nature and magnitude of the force that is set against us black people. And I use the term slight idea deliberately, because I know that whatever is seen in the historical records, or captured on camera, or shown in the movies, etc., merely scratches the surface of what really happened. No record, no retelling, no reenactment can truly capture the abominations that took place. Actors can never imitate the facial expression of a people under such a brutal siege. No soundtrack can fully express the feeling of sadness that sat over us for the years we have been under torture. But like I said, knowing that doesn't make me hate white people. It makes me love black people. I feel a kind of love for other black people, as that between soldiers who have fought together in wars. We have been chained together, whipped together, shipped together, lynched together, imprisoned together, and we survived together. Now, this is what I want you to take away from this video. Number one, we are entitled to grieve our ancestors. We have something to grieve about, and let no one take that away from you. Don't be shamed into silence. Our oppression at the hands of the white establishment is not the totality of our history. It's part. It's the sad part. But it's our history. And we have to own it. And guess what? That oppression is also white history. And whether they like it or not, they have to own it. So if anybody will be ashamed of that history, it should not be us. The second thing I wanted to take away from this video is that we don't have to be an either or camp when it comes to these issues. Those of us who don't want to talk about these things shouldn't be forced to do so. And those who want to talk about it shouldn't be forced or shamed into silence. Both camps play their part. Those who stress on other things help the next generation to think and create and develop and grow and to evolve. And on the other hand, those who keep our sad memories alive help the next generation not to be complacent, not to be too comfortable in this den of wolves dressed as sheep. They help to maintain a healthy level of righteous indignation. So both camps serve their purpose. The third thing I wanted to take away from the video is this. Even though you hear me giving my defense for those who want to grieve, for those who want to talk about their trauma, we shouldn't be carried away by grief. That's not what I'm saying. Grieving is not all we can do to memorialize and honor our fallen ancestors. We should channel that grief into unity. We should use that grief as a motivation to carry on the work of liberating ourselves from the clutches of this anti-black system. We should channel that grief into coming up with our own solutions to the problems in our communities. We should keep that grief at the forefront of our minds to remember why we should be always distrustful of those who have trampled our civilization, ripped us from our continent, and worked our people to literal death, then freed us reluctantly some 200 years later, only to then declare us unwelcomed in their society. We can't change history. We can't fix the past, but we can fix the future. No one will help us with our future. We have to do it ourselves. We have to do it together. Black is one. As you go out, be good to your kin. Celebrate and appreciate the Black Queen and King, and make our ancestors proud. Do remember to subscribe to the channel also. Turn on the notifications so that you're notified when I upload a new video. Remember to like the video, and above all things, share the content and help me to get the word out. Be strong and live the revolution. One love.